The house was silent except for the hum of the ceiling fan and the faint clatter of a phone dropping to the floor. I stood in the doorway, frozen, my daughter's voice trembling as she whispered, "Mom, you need to see this." On her tablet screen was a video, grainy, shaky, but clear enough. And there he was, my husband, my sister. In our bed, I didn't scream. I didn't cry, not yet. My throat burned with a sound that never came out. My fingers clutching the edge of the dresser like it was the only thing keeping me standing. The camera panned, and I saw something else, something that made my knees buckle. A necklace. The same gold cross I had given my sister 2 Christmases ago. It swung against her neck as she laughed. That laughter, that sound would echo in my ears for weeks to come. My daughter turned away from the screen, tears streaming down her face. "Mama, I didn't mean to find it. I was just checking the camera you said was broken." And right there, right in that moment, I knew everything in our lives was about to burn. Back to the beginning, 2 months earlier. I'm Clara Johnson, 53 years old, born and raised in Birmingham, Alabama. I've always believed that when you build a home with love, nothing can tear it down. I was wrong. For 30 years, I'd been married to William Johnson, Will to his friends, Baby to me. We built everything together. A small home on Elm Street, a modest business cleaning offices, and a daughter who was the light of our lives, Naomi. Naomi's 25 now. College graduate, smart as a whip, and with that same stubborn streak I used to have before life softened me. She still calls me Mama, even though she's grown, and she still curls up beside me on the couch when we watch movies on Fridays. Life wasn't perfect, but it was ours. That's why I never saw it coming. The slow unraveling. It started small. Will coming home later, the smell of a new cologne I didn't recognize, a sudden business trip on weekends that used to be sacred for family time. And then there was my sister, Denise. Denise was everything I wasn't. Outspoken, flashy, the kind of woman who could turn heads just by walking into a room. She'd been divorced twice and liked to say she was done with men, but somehow she was always talking about one. Still, she was my sister. We'd been through hell together, our mother's passing, our daddy's drinking, our rough teenage years. I'd never once doubted her loyalty. One Sunday after church, Will offered to drive Denise home. Said her car was acting up again. I didn't think much of it. He was that kind of man, helpful, generous, always wanting to fix things. But when he came back an hour later with that same cologne lingering around him, something in my stomach twisted. That night, lying beside him, I stared at the ceiling and thought, no, not Will, not my husband. Still, I couldn't shake the unease. A week later, Denise started calling me less. Then she stopped showing up for Sunday dinners. When she did come by, she looked nervous, jumping when my husband walked into the room, avoiding my eyes when she hugged me goodbye. I told myself it was in my head, that I was being paranoid, until Naomi said something that stopped me cold. "Mama," she said one night, "do you think Daddy's been acting weird?" I tried to laugh it off. "He's just tired, baby. Work's been rough lately." Naomi didn't look convinced. "Maybe. But you ever notice how Aunt Denise's car is always parked near Daddy's office?" That was the first crack. I told her not to worry, but that night, when Will said he was working late, I drove down there myself. The office was dark, empty. No cars out front except one. Denise's red Honda. I didn't go inside. I couldn't. I just sat there, watching that empty parking lot, feeling something in me slowly dying. When Will came home around midnight, his tie undone and his eyes half guilty, I didn't say a word. I just said, "You hungry?" and fixed him a plate, because sometimes silence cuts deeper than any question. The next morning, I called Naomi. "Baby, I think you might be right." That's when everything began to shift. Naomi's always been tech-savvy. She grew up with gadgets I never understood. When she heard the suspicion in my voice, she didn't hesitate. "Mama, let me handle it. If he's cheating, we'll know for sure." I should have told her no. I should have stopped her, but I didn't, because deep down, I already knew the truth. I just needed proof. So she did something I would never have thought to do. She connected one of those little hidden cameras. the ones you can control from your phone to our home network. Said it was for security. Will never noticed. He barely noticed anything these days. 2 days later, Naomi called me at work. Her voice was shaking. "Mama, I think you should come home. Now." When I pulled into the driveway, I saw her standing on the porch, pale and trembling. She didn't even have to say it. I could feel the betrayal in the air before I stepped inside. And that brings us back to that moment. The tablet in her hands. The video playing, my husband and my sister tangled in sheets that used to smell like lavender and home. I didn't cry that day. Not in front of Naomi. I told her to delete it, to forget she ever saw it. But she looked at me like I'd lost my mind. "Mama," she said, her voice fierce. "They don't get to walk away from this." I wanted to tell her revenge doesn't heal, but the truth was, I wanted revenge too. That night, when Will came home, I watched him like a stranger. He kissed my cheek and asked what was for dinner. I smiled. "Fried chicken and greens," I said, just like always. He ate. He laughed. He told me about his day, and I sat there smiling, nodding, memorizing every lie that left his lips. Later, when he went to bed, I stood at the window watching the streetlight flicker outside and whispered, "You took everything from me." "Will, everything." Naomi stepped into the room, her face set. "Then let's take something from him." And that's where the plan began. It wasn't impulsive. It wasn't reckless. It was careful, deliberate, and precise. Because when a mother and daughter decide to take back their dignity, nothing can stop them. I didn't sleep that night. The bed felt colder than it had ever been, even though Will was lying right beside me. Every breath he took, every turn of the sheet, sounded like thunder. My mind replayed that video again and again, every laugh, every whispered word between him and Denise. I stared up at the ceiling until dawn crept through the blinds, painting our room in thin gold lines. He stirred beside me, yawned, and said, "Morning, baby," and I answered, "Morning," as if the world hadn't just ended. He got up, showered, hummed some old blues tune, and kissed me on the forehead before heading out to work. When the door shut behind him, I sat up, grabbed the edge of the nightstand, and let the tears finally come. Naomi came in quietly, still in her pajamas. Her eyes were red too. She sat beside me, holding my hand, and whispered, "Mama, we don't have to let this break us. We can make it right." I looked at her, my baby girl fierce and grown, and saw the determination in her eyes. "How?" I asked. She just smiled. "You'll see." That week, Naomi moved back into the house, saying she wanted to spend time with family. Will didn't question it. He'd always adored her, always bragged about her being the smart one. He had no idea she was now watching him like a hawk. Naomi set up more cameras, one in the living room, one outside near the porch, another in the kitchen. She even tracked his phone using one of those family-sharing apps. I didn't know the details of what she was planning. She said it was better if I didn't, but I trusted her. Meanwhile, I kept pretending. Pretending to be the same woman who packed his lunches, folded his shirts, and kissed him goodnight. Inside, I was hollow. The first sign of Naomi's plan came on a Friday night. Will said he had to stay late at the office again. Naomi and I exchanged a glance. She pulled out her phone, tapped a few times, and then turned the screen toward me. "Look," she said. A map appeared, a little blue dot moving, not toward the office, but across town. To Denise's neighborhood. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. "You think he's going there again?" Naomi nodded. "I don't think, Mama. I know." She reached for her keys. "Come on," I froze. "Naomi, no, I can't see that again." But she looked at me with that same stubbornness I used to have when I was her age. "You don't have to get out the car, but you're going to see who he really is, with your own eyes." We parked down the street from Denise's house. The lights were low, but his car was right there in the driveway. I couldn't breathe. Naomi filmed, zooming in from a distance. "Proof," she whispered. For later, when the front door opened, I saw him, my husband of 30 years, standing there shirtless, laughing. Denise appeared behind him in one of my old robes. I felt my chest cave in. Naomi's hand touched mine. "Not yet, Mama, don't go over there. We'll do this smart." I nodded, swallowing hard, every bone in my body shaking. We drove home in silence. That silence was heavier than any scream. The next morning, Naomi woke early. I found her at the kitchen table, typing fast on her laptop. "What are you doing?" I asked. She didn't look up. "Collecting." "Collecting what?" "Everything. Pictures, texts, screenshots. He's sloppy, Mama. He's been using his work email for her. Denise sends him pictures. They even talk about you." My stomach turned. "About me?" Naomi's jaw clenched. "Yeah, about how you don't excite him anymore, and how you'd never find out." I gripped the table so tight my knuckles went white. "Lord, give me strength." She looked at me, her expression softening. "Mama, you don't need strength. You need justice." A few days later, Naomi said she needed him to help her fix her laptop. "It's been acting up," she told him sweetly. Will loved feeling needed. He sat at her desk, typing away like he knew what he was doing. What he didn't know was that Naomi had mirrored her screen to record everything. While he was helping, she pretended to step out to grab him a drink. In those few minutes, she opened his email, forwarded certain messages to a private account, and logged out before he even noticed. When I heard what she did, I was shocked. "Baby, that's dangerous." "If he finds out," she smirked. "He won't. Besides, I'm not done." By the end of that week, Naomi had enough evidence to bury him. But she didn't stop there. She wanted him to feel the same humiliation he made me feel. So she created a folder, labeled it Family Memories, and placed every screenshot, every picture, every recorded video inside. Then she uploaded it to a private drive and linked it to his phone contacts, disguised as an anniversary slideshow. All it would take was one wrong tap from him, and the truth would explode. I didn't know she planned that part. She didn't tell me, maybe because she knew I'd try to stop her. 2 nights later, Will came home drunk. He stumbled through the door, grinning that sloppy grin I used to think was charming. "Baby," he said. "Guess what? Denise called. She said y'all should come over for dinner this weekend." I froze. "You want me to have dinner with my sister?" He nodded, oblivious. "Yeah, family, right? Gotta keep things tight." Naomi nearly choked on her drink. I shot her a look to keep quiet. I smiled at him, a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Sure, Will. Let's do that." He didn't notice the tremor in my hands. That night, after he passed out, Naomi whispered from the hallway, "You're really gonna go?" "Yes," I said. "But we're gonna make it a night he won't forget." She grinned. "I already have a plan." Saturday came, and I spent the morning cooking. Fried catfish, macaroni, and sweet tea, just like old times. Will kissed my cheek, calling me his best woman. I almost laughed. When we got to Denise's, she looked nervous. She opened the door, that fake smile plastered on her face. "Hey, sis." I could smell her perfume from the doorway, the same perfume that lingered on Will's shirts. Naomi followed behind me, calm and polite. But I saw the spark in her eyes. Dinner was quiet. Too quiet. Denise fumbled through small talk. Will bragged about his business. I barely heard them. Halfway through the meal, Naomi said, "Aunt Denise, can I connect my phone to your TV? I want to show y'all something funny." Denise shrugged. "Sure, baby." "Go ahead." She connected her phone. The TV flickered, and for a split second my stomach dropped. There it was. The video. Will's voice. Denise's laugh. Their shadows tangled in my sheets. Denise's fork clattered to the floor. Will's face drained of color. I sat still, expressionless, while Naomi let it play for 3 full seconds before pausing it. "That's enough," I said quietly. The silence that followed was deafening. Will stammered. "Clara, this ain't what it looks like." Naomi stood up. "You sure, Daddy?" "Because it looks exactly like what it looks like," Denise whispered. "Clara, please." I turned to her, calm as ever. "You broke my heart, Denise. But I hope he was worth it." She covered her face, sobbing. Will reached for me, but I stepped back. "Don't." Then Naomi, steady as stone, pulled out her phone again. Oh, don't worry. We didn't post it. Yet. Will's eyes widened. What do you mean, yet? Naomi smiled faintly. That depends on how you treat my mama from now on. Denise gasped. You wouldn't... Naomi looked her dead in the eye. Try me. When we got home that night, Will begged me to talk. I didn't say a word. He slept on the couch. I lay awake in our room, staring at the ceiling again, wondering when love had turned into war. Naomi knocked softly. Mama, you okay? I nodded. I'm proud of you, baby, but I don't know if I can keep living like this. She sat beside me. You won't have to. Tomorrow's just the beginning. The next morning, Will was gone before sunrise. He didn't go to work. He went to Denise's. Naomi tracked him again. He's begging her to fix it, she said, scrolling through his messages. They're scared. Good. Then she looked at me. We could destroy him right now if you wanted. I hesitated. Destroy him? Publicly, she said. His friends, his job. They'd all know what he did. I took a deep breath. No, Naomi, not yet. Let him sweat. Because sometimes silence isn't just pain, it's power. That night, Will came home quiet, head low. He sat at the kitchen table and said, Clara, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I stared at him for a long moment. You didn't make a mistake, Will. You made a choice. He tried to grab my hand, but I pulled it away. You broke something that can't be fixed. Naomi stood in the doorway, watching him, her arms crossed. He looked between us and whispered, Please, Clara, don't ruin me. Naomi stepped forward, her voice icy. You ruined yourself. He looked at her like he didn't even recognize his own daughter. Naomi, please. She turned away. I hope you remember this feeling, because Mama sure will. Later that night, I went outside and sat on the porch. The air was thick with summer heat, and the cicadas hummed their sad little song. Naomi joined me, handing me a glass of sweet tea. You think I went too far? She asked quietly. I shook my head. No, baby. You did what I couldn't. We sat there in silence for a long time. Then I said something I didn't expect to hear myself say. But I'm not done yet. Naomi's head turned. What do you mean? I looked out at the dark street, my heart steady for the first time in weeks. He took my peace, my trust, and my dignity. I'm taking something back. Her lips curved into a slow smile. Then let's finish what we started. The next morning started quiet, too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you feel like the world is holding its breath. Will didn't come home that night. He didn't call either. His toothbrush was gone from the bathroom, a few shirts missing from the closet. Naomi walked in and looked at the empty space where his clothes had been. Guess he finally crawled back to her. I nodded slowly, staring at the drawer he used to keep his wallet in. Let him. But he'll be back. Because men like Will always come back. Not out of love, but out of fear. That day, I went through my house room by room, collecting the pieces of him that lingered. The aftershave on the sink, the boots by the door, the pictures smiling down from the hallway walls. Each item felt heavier than it should have. Memories soaked into them like sweat and sorrow. Naomi helped me pack them into boxes. You sure you want to do this now? I nodded. If I don't start cleaning now, I'll drown in what's left. She didn't argue. She just worked beside me, silent but steady, like a soldier. When we were done, the living room felt emptier but lighter too, like the air could finally move again. I sank onto the couch, breathing deep for the first time in weeks. Naomi sat beside me. Mama, I know you don't want to hear this, but he's already trying to fix things. I frowned. What do you mean? She turned her phone toward me, a text thread. Will, tell your mama I'm sorry. Will, please, Naomi, I'll do anything. Will, don't show anyone that video. I could lose everything. Naomi looked at me, her face unreadable. He's scared. I took the phone, reading those words over and over. I could almost hear his voice. Desperate, trembling. Good, I said quietly. He should be. But revenge, I learned, isn't always loud. Sometimes it's patient. It waits until the person least expects it. Naomi understood that better than anyone. Over the next few days, she started planting seeds. First, she sent anonymous screenshots to a few of Will's business partners, just enough to make them question him. Nothing too obvious. A line here, a picture there. Then she made a fake email under a name he'd never suspect, concerned colleague. The message read, "You might want to check what your partner's been doing during work hours. His reputation could hurt the company." She didn't send it from home. She drove across town, used a library computer, and left no trace. By the next morning, Will's phone was blowing up. I knew because he showed up at the house, red-eyed and furious. He banged on the door until I opened it. "Clara, what the hell is going on?" I stood there calm, apron still on from cooking dinner. "What's wrong, Will?" He stormed past me. "Somebody sent my business partners emails." "Pictures! They think I'm some kind of pervert." I folded my arms. "Well, if the shoe fits." He spun around, face twisted in anger. "You think this is funny? You trying to ruin me?" I met his glare with ice. "You ruined yourself the moment you climbed into bed with my sister." He opened his mouth, but no words came out. For a second I saw it, the fear behind his anger, the realization that I wasn't the same soft woman he'd been lying to. "Get out of my house, Will," I said quietly, before I decide to finish what my daughter started. His shoulders slumped. "Clara, please, don't do this. You don't know what it's like." I cut him off. "You think betrayal feels different just because you're the one who did it?" He stared at me, speechless. Naomi stepped into the room then, arms crossed. "You heard her. Get out." Will looked between us, then finally turned and walked out. The door closed behind him, and I swear, the house sighed with relief. For the first time in years, I felt power in my own hands again. But power's a tricky thing. It tempts you to take more than you should. Naomi didn't want to stop. That evening, she came into my room holding a folder. "Mama, you know Denise's job at the clinic?" "Yeah?" "Well, turns out she's been sneaking time off to meet him." "She's been lying on her timesheets." I frowned. "And how you know that?" I looked up her employee records. "Small-town systems, easy to access," I sighed. "Naomi," she grinned. "Don't worry, I didn't hack anything illegal, but I did find out her boss's email." I blinked. "You're not—" "Oh, I am," she said, tapping her phone. Let's see how she likes it when her perfect little world starts cracking. Part of me wanted to stop her. The other part, the hurt, the humiliated part, stayed silent. Maybe they both deserved a taste of the pain they'd caused. A few days later, Denise called me. Her voice was frantic. "Clara, did you tell my job about Will and me?" I kept my voice calm. "What job, Denise?" "My boss got an anonymous email. Said I've been lying about my hours. They're investigating me." I didn't answer. "Clara," she said again, voice breaking. "I'm gonna lose my job." I let the silence stretch, long and sharp. Then I said softly, "You lost a lot more than that when you touched my husband." She started crying. "Please, I made a mistake. I didn't mean to hurt you." I felt something inside me shift. Not pity, not forgiveness, just closure. "You hurt me, Denise," I said. "But you taught me something too. That blood doesn't make loyalty." And I hung up. After that, the calls started. From Will, from Denise, from family members who'd started whispering when Naomi's little seeds began to bloom. Because secrets, once cracked open, spread like wildfire. Everyone started asking questions. "You and Will okay? Heard something about Denise. That true what folks saying?" I didn't confirm or deny anything. I just smiled and said, "Some folks gotta learn the hard way that truth always comes home." Weeks passed. I went back to work, kept myself busy. But inside, the ache was still there, like an old wound that healed on the outside but stayed sore underneath. Naomi kept checking on me, making sure I ate, slept, smiled. But she could see it, that shadow that still lingered behind my eyes. One evening, we sat out on the porch as the sun dipped low and painted the sky orange. "Mama," she said quietly, "you ever think about what's next?" I looked at her. "What you mean?" "I mean, after all this?" "After him. After Denise. What do you want?" No one had asked me that in years. I didn't even know how to answer. I want peace, I said finally. But I don't know what that looks like anymore. Naomi smiled sadly. Then maybe it's time we start figuring it out. But fate, it seems, wasn't done with us yet. The next day, I got a letter in the mail from a lawyer. Will was filing for separation. He claimed I'd emotionally harassed him and damaged his professional reputation. I nearly dropped the paper. He's suing me? Naomi read it over, her jaw tightening. He's trying to flip it, make it look like we ruined him. I laughed bitterly. He ruined himself. Naomi put the papers down. Then we fight back. Legally this time. We found a lawyer, Miss Evelyn, an old family friend who'd once helped me with our business paperwork. She was tough, sharp, and didn't take kindly to cheating men. After I told her everything, she leaned back and said, "He's bluffing. He wants you scared. Don't give him that satisfaction." "But what if he really goes through with it?" I asked. "Then we go harder." "You've got evidence, Clara. And let me tell you, no judge in their right mind sides with a man caught with his wife's sister." Naomi smirked. "Should we show the video?" Evelyn chuckled. "Maybe not yet. But it's a nice little card to keep in your pocket." That night, Will called again. "Clara, why you doing this? Why you dragging this out?" I stayed silent. He continued, voice rising. "You trying to destroy me? Over one mistake?" "One mistake that lasted months," I said. "And in my bed," he sighed, defeated. "I lost everything already. What more do you want?" I whispered. "I want you to remember." He didn't reply. Just hung up. Naomi looked at me from across the room. "You think he's gonna stop?" I shook my head. "No. But now he knows who he's dealing with." The days that followed were calmer. But under that calm was something fierce. A quiet kind of power I hadn't felt before. I started sleeping better. Eating again. I looked in the mirror one morning and barely recognized myself. Not from pain, but from strength. And Naomi noticed. "You look lighter, Mama," she said, smiling. I smiled back. Guess revenge burns clean once it's done. But she frowned slightly. "You think it's done?" I looked out the window. Almost. But there's one more thing he needs to lose. A week later, Will came by the house again, all polite smiles and smooth words. "Clara, I've been thinking," he said. "Maybe we can work things out." "For Naomi's sake," I almost laughed. "Naomi's grown, Will. She don't need her parents pretending." He tried to step closer. "I made a mistake, baby. You know I still love you." "Love?" I said softly. "You don't even know what that word means anymore," he sighed. "I'm just asking for one more chance." I looked at him for a long moment. Then I said, "All right, Will, you want a chance? Come to church with me this Sunday. Sit beside me. Let the whole congregation see you." He hesitated. "Church?" I smiled. "If you're really sorry, you won't mind facing God with me." He agreed, probably thinking it was a small price to pay, but he had no idea what was waiting for him. That Sunday, the church was full. The choir sang, the preacher roared, and I sat in the front pew, hands folded, calm as still water. Will sat beside me, sweating through his suit. Naomi sat a few rows back, phone in her hand. When the sermon ended, Pastor Jenkins called for testimonies, and that's when I stood up. "Pastor," I said, my voice steady, "I have something to share." Will's head jerked toward me. "Clara, what are you—" I stepped into the aisle. "I just want to thank the Lord for opening my eyes, for showing me truth, even when it hurt." A murmur rippled through the pews. I turned, looked right at Will and said, "Sometimes the devil don't come with horns. Sometimes he wears your husband's face." The room went dead silent. Will's face went pale. Naomi lifted her phone. She was recording. "God showed me betrayal right inside my home," I continued. "But he also gave me the strength to stand tall and take my peace back." The church erupted in gasps. Will stood up, whispering harshly, "Clara, stop this." I raised my hand. "I already stopped it. You did this, not me." And with that, I walked out, head high, heart steady, feeling freer than I had in years. Naomi followed, her eyes wide. "Mama, that was legendary," I smiled. "Sometimes you don't need revenge. Sometimes the truth's loud enough." But deep down, I knew this wasn't the end, because Will had one more lesson left to learn, the kind that hurts more than shame. The next morning, the phone started ringing before the sun was up. First it was my cousin Bernice, whispering like she was delivering state secrets. "Girl, did you really call Will the devil in church yesterday?" I stirred my coffee, calm as ever. "I didn't call him the devil, Bernice. I just said he wears his face sometimes." She let out a low whistle. "Well, honey, that face is everywhere. Somebody recorded it and posted it on Facebook. Got over 5,000 views overnight." I blinked. 5,000? Bernice chuckled. You went viral, baby. Folks calling you the Southern Medea of mercy." I almost laughed. But the truth of it hit me like a warm wave. People were watching, and for once, it wasn't me who had to hide. Will wanted to play games with my life. Fine. Let him see what it felt like to be exposed. By mid-morning, he showed up at my door again. Eyes bloodshot, face tired, like the weight of the world had finally found his shoulders. "Clara," he said hoarsely, "you ruined me." I took a sip of my coffee. "No, Will, you ruined yourself. I just stopped covering for you." He stepped closer. "I can't show my face at work. My partner's pulled out of a deal. Folks looking at me like I'm some kind of monster." I tilted my head. "Maybe stop acting like one." He flinched at that. For a moment, I thought he might lash out. But he didn't. He just dropped his shoulders and whispered, "I lost everything." I looked him dead in the eye. "Then maybe now you'll learn what everything really means." Naomi walked in then, her phone in her hand, eyes sharp. "You might want to tell Denise to stay off social media too, Daddy." He turned to her. "What are you talking about?" Naomi scrolled through her screen and showed him. Denise's profile was flooded with comments, harsh, mocking, and full of judgment. "Sleeping with your sister's husband. You trifling. You deserve everything coming your way. God don't like ugly, baby." Will's face went red. "This is cruel. You can't just humiliate people like this." Naomi's voice stayed calm. "Funny, that's what Mama said when you were creeping behind her back." He had no comeback. Just stood there, trembling with shame and anger. I finally said, "You better go now, Will, before this house teaches you any more lessons." He left without another word. That evening, Naomi and I sat on the porch, watching the sky burn orange. "Was that too far?" she asked quietly. I thought for a long while. Truth don't always come gentle. Sometimes it's got to shake the dust off before it can shine. She smiled a little. "You sound like Grandma." I laughed softly. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. We sat in silence for a while, the cicadas buzzing, the world moving on. For the first time in a long time, I felt the peace I'd been praying for. But peace, I learned, comes with its own kind of emptiness. A few weeks passed, and word spread fast. Denise lost her job. Will's company quietly pushed him out. He started doing odd work around town, handyman stuff, fixing gutters, mowing lawns, anything to keep food on the table. Folks whispered when they saw him, and he couldn't meet their eyes. One day I saw him outside the grocery store, sitting on the curb with a paper bag in his hands. He looked smaller somehow, like all that pride had melted off and left just a man behind. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. He saw me and stood quickly. "Clara, wait." I stopped. "What is it?" "I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything." I nodded slowly. "You already said that." He swallowed hard. "No, you don't understand. I lost Denise. She left town. Said I ruined her life." I looked at him, expression unreadable. "You both ruined mine first. Maybe now you finally understand." He stared down at his hands. "I don't expect forgiveness. I just don't know who I am anymore." "That's between you and God," I said softly. "But I hope one day you find the man you were supposed to be, not the one you chose to be." Then I turned and walked away. That night I couldn't sleep. The wind outside moaned against the windows, and for the first time since everything happened, I felt hollow. Revenge had filled me up for so long. I'd forgotten what to do once it was done. I sat up and whispered to the dark, "What now, Lord?" Naomi must have heard me from her room because she came in, rubbing her eyes. "Mama, you okay?" I nodded weakly. "Yeah, baby. Just thinking." She sat on the edge of the bed. "About Daddy?" "About me," I said. "About how much of myself I gave away to keep a man who never deserved it." Naomi reached over and took my hand. "You didn't lose yourself, Mama. You just got buried under all his mess. But you're still here." Tears welled up in my eyes. "You sure sound like somebody's mama yourself." She smiled. Guess I had a good teacher. The next day, Naomi handed me an envelope. "What's this?" I asked. "Your new start." Inside was a flyer for a local women's workshop. Small business training for women over 50. "Mama," she said, "you've been making your sweet potato pies for years. Why not turn it into something real? Sell them at markets, take orders, build something that's yours." I looked at the flyer, then at her. "You really think I can?" She grinned. "You don't think?" So I went. That Saturday, I sat in a room full of women like me, strong, worn, but not broken. Some had left bad marriages. Others had lost jobs or children or hope. But every one of them was there trying to start again. By the end of the day, I felt like I'd been given back a piece of myself. I came home humming, already planning recipes and business names. Naomi watched me scribbling ideas on napkins. "Look at you," she said, laughing. "All fired up," I smiled. Guess revenge was just the appetizer. Now it's time for the main course. A month later, Clara's Comfort Kitchen had its first table at the town farmers market. I sold pies, cornbread, peach cobbler, all with that secret touch folks used to line up for at church potlucks. People came by not just for the food, but for the story. "You that lady from the video, ain't you?" They'd ask, I'd laugh. "Guess so. But I'm also the lady who makes the best sweet potato pie in 3 counties. By noon, everything sold out. I went home that day with flour on my apron and joy in my chest. Naomi hugged me tight. "You did it, Mama." And for once I believed her. But peace doesn't mean life stops testing you. 2 months later, I got a call from the hospital. It was Denise. They said she'd been admitted. Depression, exhaustion, maybe worse. She'd been staying with a cousin in another town, and when the rumors caught up to her, she'd started falling apart. Naomi overheard and frowned. "You're not thinking of going, are you?" I hesitated. "She's still my sister, baby." Naomi shook her head. She wasn't acting like one when she crawled into Daddy's bed. "I know," I whispered. "But if I don't go, I'll always wonder what kind of woman I became. The kind that lets hate finish what hurt started." So I went. Denise looked small in that hospital bed, her face pale, her eyes swollen from crying. When she saw me, she broke down completely. "Clara, I'm so sorry. I can't live with what I did." I sat beside her, took her hand. "You should have thought about that before you did it." She nodded weakly. "I know, I wanted to be loved. You always had everything, the husband, the home, the family." I felt invisible. I stared at her, the anger and pity swirling inside me. "So you wanted to hurt me to feel seen?" Tears slid down her cheeks. "I was wrong." "I see that now." I squeezed her hand gently. "Good. Because forgiveness don't mean forgetting. It means learning. And I'm still learning." She looked up at me, surprised. "You forgive me?" I took a long breath. "I forgive you, Denise. But you gotta forgive yourself next. That's the hard part." She started crying harder, but there was relief in it. Like someone had finally cracked a window open in a suffocating room. When I left the hospital, I felt lighter, not because she was forgiven, but because I was free. Naomi met me in the parking lot, arms folded. "Well," I smiled faintly. "It's done," she sighed. "You're better than me, Mama." "No," I said softly. "Just tired of carrying what ain't mine." Weeks passed, and the pie business kept growing. I started taking orders online, shipping across the state. Folks loved the story behind it. A woman who lost everything and built something sweet from the ashes. I even got invited to speak at the same workshop where it all started. When I stood before those women, I told them, pain don't have to be your ending. Sometimes it's just the recipe for something better." They clapped. Some cried, and I felt something I hadn't in years. Proud. But then one day, out of the blue, Will showed up again. He looked rough, thinner, older, a shadow of the man he used to be. "I heard about your business," he said quietly. "I'm glad you're doing well." "Thank you," I said, keeping my voice neutral. He hesitated. "Clara, I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted to say, you were the best thing that ever happened to me, and I'm sorry I didn't see it until I lost it." I looked at him for a long moment. "You were right about one thing, Will." He frowned. "What's that?" "You lost it." He nodded slowly, tears glistening in his eyes. "I know." Then he turned and walked away, shoulders heavy, disappearing down the road like a man walking out of his own story. That night, I sat on my porch again, the air warm and still. Naomi joined me, her head resting on my shoulder. "Feels different now, doesn't it?" She said. "It does," I whispered, like peace finally came home. We sat in silence, the stars above like tiny promises. But deep in my heart, I knew. Every storm leaves something behind. And sometimes what grows after the rain is stronger than what was lost. The morning after Will left my porch for the last time, I sat by the kitchen window with a cup of coffee and watched the dawn rise over the pecan trees. For the first time in years, the sun didn't feel like it was burning through me. It felt like it was warming me. Naomi came in, still in her robe, hair wrapped up, eyes bright. "Mama, the market called," she said. "They want more pies next weekend. Said folks been asking for you by name." I smiled. "Clara's Comfort Kitchen's got fans now, huh?" She grinned. "More like followers. They love your story. The woman who turned betrayal into bakery magic." I chuckled. "I never thought heartbreak could rise like dough, but here we are." Naomi laughed so loud she nearly spilled her coffee. "You should put that on a t-shirt." The weeks rolled on in gentle rhythm. Early mornings baking, afternoons packaging orders, evenings talking to Naomi on the porch. My house, once echoing with hurt, now smelled of cinnamon and sweet potatoes. Sometimes I'd catch myself humming gospel tunes while kneading dough, and I'd think, "Lord, I made it." But healing isn't a straight road. Every now and then, something would remind me of what I'd lost. His old jacket in the closet, the empty space at the dinner table. The difference was now those memories didn't bleed anymore. They just sat quietly, like old photographs. One Saturday, Naomi came home from the farmer's market later than usual. She had a look in her eye, soft but serious. "Mama," she said, "you remember Darius? The man from church who always brings that fried catfish to the picnics?" She nodded, smiling shyly. "He asked me out," I blinked. "On a date?" "Mm-hmm," I laughed, half teasing. "Well, I'll be—" "The Lord works in mysterious ways." "You say yes?" "I did," she admitted. "But I wasn't sure how you'd feel. After everything with Daddy, I didn't know if you wanted a man anywhere near this house again." I reached over and touched her hand. "Baby, don't let my pain build your walls. You deserve your own joy. If he treats you right, you go Lev." Her eyes softened. "You really mean that?" "I do. Love's not the problem, Naomi. It's forgetting how to love ourselves first that gets us in trouble." She leaned in and hugged me tight. A few days later, Denise called again. Her voice was steadier this time, softer, like someone learning to speak after a long silence. "Clara," she said, "I just wanted to tell you I'm moving. Got a new job in Atlanta. Small clinic, fresh start." "That's good, Denise." "I don't expect us to be sisters like before," she said carefully. "But maybe someday we can talk again without all the pain between us." I took a deep breath. "You keep doing right by yourself. That's how we start." For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she whispered, "Thank you, Clara, for not giving up on me, even when I deserved it." When the call ended, I stared at the phone for a long time, then whispered, "Goodbye, Denise. Go find your peace." By autumn, the leaves turned gold, and the air smelled like apples and wood smoke. My business was blooming. Orders were coming from all over the state, church ladies, local cafes, even a school that wanted pies for a fundraiser. I hired 2 women from the workshop, both single mothers needing steady work. Watching them laugh and roll dough together made my heart swell. I realized I wasn't just baking pies. I was baking second chances. One afternoon, while cleaning up, Naomi looked at me and said, "You ever think about writing your story down?" I laughed. "Who'd want to read that?" She grinned. "Mama, half the town already has. Might as well make it official." That night, I sat at my old kitchen table with a notebook and pen. I wrote the first line slow, the way you say a prayer. My name is Clara Mae Thompson, and once upon a time, I thought my life ended when my husband betrayed me. But the truth is, it was just beginning. The words came easier after that. Not perfect, not polished, but honest. Every page was a piece of my healing. Sometimes I cried while writing, sometimes I laughed. And when I finished that first chapter, I whispered, "There you are, Clara. I almost forgot who you were." Winter came with cold mornings and quiet nights. One evening, as Naomi decorated the little Christmas tree, there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find Will standing there. Hat in hand, snow on his shoulders. "Clara," he said softly. "I didn't want to intrude, I got something for you." He handed me a small box. Inside was a locket. "I found it cleaning out the old house," he said. "It's yours. I bought it for your birthday years ago, but I never gave it to you." I turned the locket over in my hand. It had our initials engraved, C&W 95. The sight of it stirred memories, but no pain. Just a quiet acceptance. "Thank you," I said finally. "It's beautiful," he nodded. "I'm clean now. Been sober for months, working steady. I just wanted you to know. You were right. I had to lose everything to see what mattered." I met his eyes, and, for the first time, saw humility there. Real humility. "I hope you keep walking that path," I said gently. He hesitated. "You forgive me?" I smiled faintly. "I already did, Will. Doesn't mean we can go back. But it means I can wish you peace without losing mine." He looked down, tears in his eyes. "That's more than I deserve." "Maybe," I said softly. "But grace ain't about what we deserve." He left then, and the snow swallowed his footsteps. Later that night, Naomi asked, "You okay?" I nodded. "I am. He's not my husband anymore, but he's still a soul trying to find his way. I can pray for that," she smiled. "You really are Aunt Clara now, the one who prays for everybody else." I laughed. "Long as I still pray for myself first." Spring came again, bright and new. My little business had outgrown the farmer's market, so we opened a small shop downtown. The sign out front read, "Clara's Comfort Kitchen, Pie's Hope, and a Little Bit of Heaven." On opening day, the line stretched down the block. Folks came not just for sweets, but for what the place meant, proof that pain could bloom into something good. Naomi handled the register, smiling like sunshine. While I served slices and told stories, even Pastor Jenkins came by, grinning ear to ear. "Sister Clara, I knew the Lord had something bigger planned for you," I laughed. "Well, Pastor, sometimes the Lord's recipe starts with a little bitterness before the sugar." That night, after the shop closed, Naomi and I sat in the empty space, lights dimmed, counting the day's earnings. She looked around. "Mama, you ever think about what's next?" I smiled. "Honey, for the first time in my life, I don't need a next. I'm right where I'm supposed to be." She leaned on my shoulder. "I'm proud of you." "I'm proud of us," I said. We sat there, quiet, the hum of the fridge and the smell of baked apples wrapping around us like a blessing. Months later, I got a letter, fancy paper, gold edges. It was from a publisher who'd heard about my little book. They wanted to turn it into a memoir. Naomi screamed when she read it. "Mama, you're gonna be famous!" I laughed until tears came. Famous for surviving? I'll take it. When the book came out, it was called The Recipe for Peace. The dedication read, "To every woman who's been broken and told she couldn't start again. You can." I did. People wrote letters, women from all over, telling me my story gave them courage to leave bad marriages, forgive old wounds, and build new lives. I read everyone, tears in my eyes. Because that's all I ever wanted, to turn my pain into someone else's hope. One Sunday, a year after it all began, I walked into church again. Same pew. Same sunlight streaming through the stained glass. Pastor Jenkins smiled from the pulpit. "Sister Clara, would you like to say a few words?" I stood, my heart steady. "I just want to thank God," I said, "for showing me that endings ain't always the enemy. Sometimes they're just the doorway to something better." I paused, scanning the faces in the crowd. Some new, some familiar, all shining. "Pain tried to take my story," I continued, "but the Lord said, 'No, baby, this is just your introduction. And now, look what He's done.'" The church erupted in amens and applause. Naomi stood, tears streaming, clapping the loudest. After service, she wrapped her arms around me. "You did it, Mama. You turned all that hurt into a whole new life." I smiled, looking up at the bright spring sky. "We did it, baby." We both did. Because Naomi had grown too. Stronger, wiser, unafraid to love again. She and Darius were still seeing each other, talking about moving in together. And I couldn't help but think, maybe love wasn't broken after all. That night, I sat on my porch, rocking slow, moonlight silvering the world. The air smelled of jasmine and promise. I opened the locket Will had returned and slipped inside a small photo. Not of him, not of me alone, but of Naomi and me smiling in front of the bakery. That was my new beginning, my true family. I whispered a little prayer. "Thank you, Lord, for not letting bitterness be the end of my story." Then I leaned back, eyes closed, and let the peace wash over me. Because in the end, it wasn't revenge that saved me. It was redemption. It was love. It was finally coming home to myself.